windows that were smashed out by looters. Other stores down that way. Dubliner was one of the stores that was hit. We're hearing that Nike store was breached, but you can see that construction crews are around boarding up right now. But this is where things really started last night before they headed into other parts of the city. National Guard is around, but this morning we heard a lot more information from our city leaders about what happened, about the response. So some of that information, Mayor Garcia really stressed today that there was no loss of life last night, that there were no police or fire that were seriously injured, that there were no hospitalizations that occurred with law enforcement. But right now, today, for your awareness, we are under a curfew in the downtown area in our business districts that went into effect at 1 p.m., that there is a citywide curfew that starts at 4 p.m., so wherever you are at 4 p.m., go home. Stay home tonight. That's the number one thing that you can do. We heard from Chief Luna, our police chief. He gave us some interesting numbers about the average daily call load that the police department receives. That Long Beach usually gets 1,726 calls. That's the daily average call load that they get. But yesterday, the day of the protest that started peacefully and turned into a lot of destruction and looting, they had 4,686 calls yesterday. We heard from our fire chief, Chief Espino, who talked about the experience of being in Long Beach in 1992 after the riots, how there was widespread destruction in our city and hundreds of buildings that were damaged or destroyed. But that wasn't the case here last night. We saw a lot of superficial damage in our city. We saw a lot of graffiti and tagging. We saw a lot of windows broken and glass broken, but there were isolated fires. There was only one really major structural fire in the city, and that was the Suit Outlet up on 7th Street, but that was an isolated incident. So if you come over here, you can see that there are National Guard around talking to the public. If you look down towards Rainbow Harbor, you can see that some buildings have been tagged. But just up the block from here, where the promenade reaches along Ocean Boulevard, that's really where around 10 p.m. last night there was a confrontation where the looters started to engage police and police started to push back. That's just up the road from here, and after that happened, that's when we started to see looters moving elsewhere into the city, going up towards 7th Street and up towards 10th Street and across Anaheim, and a lot more looting occurred up there. But everything that we heard this morning was that this was really isolated, that injuries were minor, that there were no loss of lives. There was only one major structure fire. And also what's really interesting about that is there's brand new construction on two sides of where that fire happened, and that wasn't impacted. We also heard today, again, from Chief Luna about asking businesses for any footage that they may have. That if they've got security camera footage, the police department wants that information. And what he said was, if you were looting and we can identify you or get your license plate number, we're going to catch you. So clearly the police department is interested in being proactive and finding out what's going on. We also heard frequently today that a lot of this were outside looters that came in. We saw this ourselves in our newsroom about a peaceful protest that started when we first went over to the start of it over at police headquarters in the Civic Center. It was a very calm, very organized, couple hundred person protest that as the evening and afternoon went on, it grew and grew and grew. And there were thousands of people by darkness. And that's when things like here in the Pike really started. So after that point is really when our city transitioned to the next steps and what we saw around our city this morning. Earlier today I talked to Craig Kojan, who's the president and CEO of the Downtown Long Beach Alliance, the business improvement district for our downtown area. Late last night, after things started calming down, we started to see a groundswell of people wanting to help out and clean up our city. And that's really what we've seen about what Long Beach is today. Some numbers that we heard were there were between 1,500 and 2,000 volunteers that came out around the community that really started downtown here today. Craig Kojan from DLBA told me that at one point there were up to 18 to 20 waves of people coming between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. this morning just wanting to help out. And there were so many people that they sent them to Houghton Park up in North Long Beach, to Zaffaria, to Anaheim, to East Village, trying to help out anywhere in the city that they could. That, as Craig told me, we saw destruction last night. We saw it as a community, and that's not what we're about. Craig said our community came out to help rebuild today, and that's exactly what we saw. Long Beach is moving on. Long Beach is getting back to normal today. The graffiti that we saw in our newsroom last night, you couldn't see it walking around this morning. Our building, the Long Beach Post building on Ocean Boulevard, our lobby was broken into, and some of our other businesses in our building experienced damage last night. But all of that's being repaired right now. Our city is rebuilding. You can see goods that were donated. Stephen, if you come back over here, I don't know if you folks can see it over there, but coffee and snacks and food that's been donated to help people that are cleaning up, to help these construction crews that are coming out from the building trades and the unions to help our city recover. But we saw thousands of volunteers come out this morning, and as Craig Kojan told me, it's about our spirit as a city. I want to call in my colleague, Crystal Niebla, who just joined us. Crystal is a brand new reporter at the Long Beach Post. Yesterday was her very first day. Crystal is a fellow from the Report for America program. We're going to come over here because of the wind a little bit. But Crystal, I wanted to ask you a couple questions about your experience, what you saw last night before we talk about what you saw today. You were out with our crews. What did you experience when you were out? What did you see? Where did you go last night?
I was on Broadway for the most part. What I saw was a very peaceful protest, a lot of chanting, even people who were not part of the actual march, people who are living on those streets were also showing their support, joining the chants, having signs out. I was amazed at how many people were there to also to provide support, with water to the protesters, snacks, first aid kits in case anything or anyone got hurt. It was a really hot day, so a lot of people were really hot. I know I was, and it was pretty peaceful for the most part. And then they went back. Apparently there was more than one crowd heading in different directions, and so I was part of one of them. I went back to Broadway and Pine Avenue, and that's where the crowd really halted because there was a blockade of police officers there, and so for a while it was just a stalemate between the police officers and the protesters, and then the police issued declared an unlawful assembly, and then I'm sure you all saw the curfew that was implemented in the city as well. And then shortly after, I was called to go back to the office, and apparently when I was at the office, that's when things started to become a bit more hostile, and then maybe the looting began. So I did see on some videos on social media that there were people trying to protect some of the businesses, specifically Nike, people trying to protect it from it being looted. So I thought that was kind of beautiful, but it seems that it was still looted, and I honestly didn't really see that many anyone being really violent or anything like that up until I would say 7:30. That was around the time where I discovered that our lobby was also broken into. So yeah, I didn't have any other questions.
Glad you were safe out there last night with our folks. Crystal, this morning you were telling me that you were out in West Long Beach, taking a look at the West Long Beach community, which is what you're going to be covering in your fellowship here with the Post, is really focusing on West Long Beach. What did you see? What did you hear? What did you notice in West Long Beach today?
I'll say bluntly and concisely, it was untouched for the most part. It was like nothing ever happened there. I didn't really see any tagging or graffiti or any vandalism, not even businesses boarded up. I mean, there's always the usual tagging, but it wasn't related to the protest last night. So that was what I saw.
Crystal, thank you very much. So back out here at the Pike Outlets where things really started last night, again, as we talked about at the beginning, we're seeing that a lot of the destruction of last night, it's all gone. Thousands of volunteers came out this morning, fanned out, started here in downtown, fanned out across the city to clean up, to start rebuilding, to get us back to normal. And that's where we're heading is Long Beach right now. It's not about the destruction last night, but it's about how we're moving forward as a community is what we're hearing from everyone today. So from all of us here at the Long Beach Post, thank you to all the volunteers. Stay with us, stay with the Long Beach Post and the Long Beach Business Journal for the latest on the developments as we continue to recover from this and continue to report right here from downtown Long Beach.